Well, this is the day that the Lord has made. We ought to rejoice and be glad in it. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. Welcome to Tuesday night Bible study at Lighthouse City Church. It is an honor and a privilege to share in this time with you. If you are watching on Facebook and YouTube, we appreciate you. For those who are here with us at church, we're thankful for your presence as well. I was glad when they said unto me, let us go into the house of the Lord. Hope that you have had a blessed start to your week and looking forward to continuing in this time together. Of course, we gather on Sundays at 10 a.m., but we also gather on Tuesday evenings at 6:30 p.m. as well. And so we say welcome, 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 welcome back to our starting point Bible study. Thanks for joining us. Our theme is called Starting Point because, yes, even though it's easy to learn lessons at the end when you know how everything is going to play out, at the end, once you know what twists and turns are going to befall you. It's easy to learn lessons at the end. Once you know who the killer is, it's easy to learn lessons once all the motives have been revealed to you. It's easy to learn lessons at the end, but can we learn some lessons at the beginning? Can we learn some lessons from the first steps, not the last steps? Can we learn some lessons at the outset? And that's what we're hoping to do. Now, before I reveal this evening's main character, I want to begin by asking an initial question. And the initial question that I want to ask is this, and this is the audience participation point of the evening. But I want to ask this question: what kind of lessons does the Bible teach? That's not rhetorical. I really want you to answer it. You can put it in the comment section on Facebook. If you're watching on your phone and YouTube, you can put it in the comments section there. But what kinds of lessons does the Bible teach? Just one word answers. Don't be all highfalutin and complex. Just one word. What kind of lessons does the Bible teach? I suspect you might say something like love, all right, or forgiveness, or sacrifice. The Bible teaches us about sacrifice. The Bible teaches us about kindness, about joy, about mercy, about grace, about family, about community, about justice, about right and wrong, about all Jesus, right? About Jesus. What kinds of lessons does the Bible teach? How many did we get to just on my list? That was like almost 10, almost 11, almost 12. Many of those perhaps were on your list as well. Let me ask a follow-up question. How long, if you had to make a list, would it take for you to get to the word loyalty? That the Bible teaches us lessons in loyalty. Loyalty, it means to make a steadfast commitment. Loyalty, it means to remain, to have fidelity, to have allegiance or devotion. I think the Bible teaches us lessons in loyalty. Now, I imagine the reason it is sufficiently quiet is that word loyalty perhaps didn't come up too quick for many of us, because if we're honest, we don't quite know how we feel about that word. I was having a conversation with one of our members, and he was asking me what I thought was making people, or at least stopping people from getting married. And because there's not anything pretty much that I don't have an opinion on, I relatively quickly responded to him, and I said it's, in my opinion, simply because people don't do loyalty anymore. In this day and age, it's not their fault. In this day and age, there's very few things that prepare us for commitment at any cost. Okay. How many times have you changed, pick it? How many times have you changed your cell phone number? How many times have you changed your cell phone provider? How many times have you changed your cable subscriber? How many times have you changed your favorite drink or your favorite perfume or your favorite this or your favorite? We're not, back in the day, used to have brand loyalty. If it wasn't a Ford, our family didn't drive it. If it wasn't a this or if it wasn't a Chevy, our family drinks Coke. Our family drinks Pepsi. In this house, only this can come in. If it's broken, Mr. Jackson is going to fix it. And if Mr. Jackson can't fix it, Then we go into Sears, because Sears is the only place we go to buy things, because Sears is the only place we have a credit card, because we can get clothes and tires and washing machines all from Sears. Okay, because we had a certain kind of loyalty. Okay, we have a certain kind of loyalty. But nowadays, for the most part, it's just BBD. Bigger, better deal. Right? We don't care if little poor Asian people made it. We don't care who we put out of business. We don't care how long we've been banking with somebody else. If they've got a lower interest rate, I'm going over there. If they can serve me better, I'm going over there. If they meet my needs, I'm going over there. If they hurt my feelings, I'm leaving. Okay? If for a moment it costs me more than I thought it should, I'm out. Okay? And so we have, and for that matter, because we've been burned so many times, we're not loyal because we feel like people haven't been loyal to us. Okay? And so we say, I don't believe in that anymore. Okay? I'll be transactional. I'll be as good to you as you are to me. Okay? But don't come over here looking for loyalty. Okay? But I would argue that just as the Bible is a story about so many different things, about love, about forgiveness, about kindness, about community, about justice, about equity, and about all of those things, the Bible is also a story about loyalty. It's a story about God's loyalty to us. It's a story about our loyalty to God. And the Bible is a story about our loyalty to each other. And so this evening, I want to suggest that this idea that the Bible is about loyalty is demonstrated in the 4 chapters of the story of Ruth. Last week we looked at the starting point of Noah, and we explored what it meant to be anointed at the outset. We explored what it meant to be anointed to stand out, and we explored what it meant to be anointed to carry out. That we've got tasks and we've got assignments and all those kinds of things. And this week I want to focus in on the story of Ruth in the Old Testament book that bears her name. And just like last time, we want to ask the question, what ought we learn from the beginning, learn at the outset that could potentially aid us in navigating the rest of our year? And I would suggest, if I'm going to give this evening a title, this evening I want to talk about lessons in loyalty. Lessons in loyalty. Could it be that this year you will be assessed? You will be evaluated. You will reflect on this year as a success or a failure to the extent that your loyalty can be measured. That's what I want us to think about for the next few minutes as we explore the book of Ruth. So, once again, welcome to Starting Point. Let's pray. God, we give you thanks for your goodness, for your graciousness, for your mercy towards us. We give you thanks for this opportunity to gather together tonight, in person, online, wherever and whenever we are, for this opportunity to break together the bread of life. We thank you for your word, for how it ministers to us, for how it sustains us, for how it encourages us, for how it challenges us, for how it corrects us, for how it redirects us. God, we thank you for your word. And if we are honest, we need a word. We need a word of correction. We need a word of encouragement. We need a word that will bless and keep and hold. And so, God, open our eyes, open our ears, open our hearts to your word. In Jesus' name, amen. This evening, I turn your attention to the Old Testament book of Ruth. The book of Ruth, it it chronologically, it sits in between two sets of major pillars. Ruth sits on one side of the early heroes. You'll remember them. They're Adam and Eve. They're Noah. They're Abraham and Sarah. They're Isaac and Jacob and Moses and Joshua. Those are the early heroes. And Ruth sits behind all of that. But then Ruth sits before the later heroes, the later pillars, the later folk like Saul and David and Solomon and all of the major and minor prophets. Ruth sits sandwiched in between the action. They're sitting in the middle of a period of time that's characterized by judges. Judges chapter 21 verse 25 reads, In those days there was no king in Israel, and everyone did what was right in their own eyes. That's Judges chapter 21 verse 25. Judges in this context, they weren't people who determined the lawlessness of behavior or the punishment when those laws were broken. These judges are not people who sat behind a bench with a gavel. They did not wear black robes. They are not the judges that we envision today. But judges in biblical times were oftentimes warriors. They were warriors against God's enemies on behalf of God. Perhaps the most popular, or at least the most recognizable judge to us from that time, you might have heard the name of Samson. You might have heard of the woman named Deborah. You might have heard the story of Gideon and lapping water and getting rid of soldiers before a battle. Those were all judges from that period of time. And oftentimes the Bible deals with medium-sized groups or large groups of people, but in this instance, over 4 chapters, the Bible really tells the story of just one woman's journey. When it comes to the authorship of the book of Ruth, I always try to tell you sort of what tradition has believed, but then also what now scholars believe. Historically, the tradition of our faith said that the prophet Samuel was the writer of the book of Ruth. But now, over time, many scholars believe that it was written much later after Samuel, and perhaps even during the reign of David, or even after the reign of David, and that it was written to fix a problem, or to prove a point, or to create connective tissue. The book of Ruth sort of sets the stage, not just for David, but even for Jesus. And so that if you were trying to connect not just David to Jesus, but to extend that story further back, you might need to tell a story that sets up David and Jesus. And that is what the story of Ruth does. The question is, why does it do it? Does it do it because it just does, or does it do it because it was created to do that? The other thing that it does is it gives license. It gives permission for foreign intermarriage. It signs off on it. It allows it to be acceptable. And so again, whether it does it by accident or whether it does it by intention, the book of Ruth does a couple of different things in our tradition. It connects Jesus and David and further back, but also it gives permission and license for intermarriage. It is, however, not necessarily believed to be true in the sense of historical. It is intended to be true in the sense of spiritual. It is a short story. It is a novella. This is not history for the sake of writing down what happened. This is history in the sense of trying to prove a point, tell a story with an intended outcome. It follows a tight 4-episode structure, and it mirrors the 4 chapters of the book. There's a lot of stuff that happens. You're going to not hear anything about Boaz, okay? Because that's later in the story. We're going to ignore chapters 2, 3, and 4. We are singularly focused in on the first chapter or the first episode. If you're still curious, feel free to go home and read the next three chapters. But let's dig in to chapter 1 of the Old Testament book of Ruth. The first 2 verses introduce the setting, the circumstances, and the main characters. Chapter 1, verse 1 and verse 2 read this way. In the days when the judges ruled, there was a famine in the land, and a certain man of Bethlehem in Judah went to live in the country of Moab, and he and his wife and 2 sons. The name of the man was Elimelech, and the name of his wife Naomi. And the names of his 2 sons were Mahlon and Chilion. They were Ephrathites from Bethlehem in Judah. And they went into the country of Moab and remained there. Let's pause, because there's a whole bunch of words, but I can tell you have not necessarily as much sense as I would like for you to have in understanding what it means. Okay? There's a famine. The first thing that we know is there's a famine in the land. The famine means there's not enough food for the number of people. People are starving. People aren't hungry. People are starving. There's a famine in the land of Judah, and so this family unit makes the decision to relocate. They are a family. They are a father and a husband. They are a mother and a wife, and they are 2 sons. And the family of 4 moved from their home in Bethlehem to Moab. First of all, they move from a place of familiarity to a place of unfamiliarity. Think about how hard that is. Think about how hard it is, especially when the place that is familiar is causing you pain. It's double, because you know you need to leave, but it's leaving the familiar for the unfamiliar. And how many people do we know? Have we looked at don't talk about yourself, just look at other people's situations. How many times have you looked at other people's situations and said, they need to get away from there? But you know that they know that's all they know. And so they're staying because it's familiar. It's not blessing them. It's not healing them. It's not helping them grow. But it's familiar. And this family moves from a place of familiarity to a place of unfamiliarity. Think about what it's been like to go into unfamiliar spaces, how disorienting that is, how it feels to walk into a room and you feel like you're the only person who's there for the first time. You're the only person who doesn't know what's going on. You're the only person that feels out of place. There are people who feel like that every Sunday when they come to church. Everybody feels like they already have relationships. They already know when to stand up, when to sit down, what's coming next. And sometimes you feel like, people feel like they're the only people who don't know what's happening. And nobody seems interested in letting them into the circle. So this family moves from a place of familiarity to a place of unfamiliarity. The famine is familiar, but their hope and their desperation takes them to an unfamiliar place. And would that we all got desperate enough to leave detrimental places, okay, that were still familiar. They move from a place of familiarity to a place of unfamiliarity. But not only do they move from a place of familiarity to a place of unfamiliarity, they move from a place of familiarity to a place of hostility. Moab is enemy territory. These two communities have historic beef with each other. Okay? This being a die-hard West Sider and moving to the East Side. Okay? And so this family moves into enemy territory, but the thing I want us to notice is that they move together. And so the first lesson I want to suggest is external crises will test your loyalties. External crises. Things will push up against you. Things will challenge you. Outside forces will bother you. Okay? People will say things about you all. People will judge you without knowing you. External crises will test your loyalty. Can you stay together? Can you stick together when craziness is going on around you? External crises will test your loyalties. Okay. There's a famine in the land. Okay. That's an external crisis. Okay. And yet this mom, this dad, this husband, this wife, these two sons, rather than splitting up and going their separate ways, they stick together and move together to their next destination. Okay? External crises will test your loyalty. There are things to learn from the book of Ruth even before Ruth even joins the story. But let's continue on. The family has moved from home to enemy territory. And in verse 3, it reads, "But Elimelech, the husband of Naomi, died, and she was left with her two sons. These took Moabite wives. The name of the one was Orpah, and the name of the other Ruth. When they had lived there about 10 years, both Mahlon and Chilion also died, so that the woman being Naomi, was left without her two sons and her husband." Verses 3 through 5. In verse 3, the patriarch dies. The father of the family dies. The responsibility of maintaining the family is then flows not to the mother, but to the sons. It is the son's responsibility to take care of their mother and to make sure that she is attended to. They take wives, both of them, but they still have a responsibility to their mother, these two sons. And the Bible says that 10 years after their father died, both men died, both sons died, both husbands died. Mahlon, Chilion, and Elimelech are all now dead, leaving behind Naomi, Orpah, and Ruth. I want to suggest, let me say this first. There are few things that can break a family apart like death. There are few things that will disrupt or perhaps expose the lack of togetherness like death in a family. Let me make it more broad, and I'll put it this way. Here's the second lesson. Not just will external crises test our loyalties, but internal crises will test our loyalties. Why do I break them up that way? Because sometimes it's not what happens outside the family that tests the loyalty. Sometimes it's what's happening inside the family. Because some of us know as long as there's pressure from the outside, we'll lock arms. Because don't nobody mess with the Turmans. Okay? But when the Turmans start messing with each other, okay, when stuff happens in one of my favorite, it's a movie, but one of my favorite stories is a story of a scary movie a long time ago, and the police tell the woman that the person who's been stalking her, they say, "Ma'am, the call is coming from inside the house." Right? And so sometimes crises don't come from outside the house. Sometimes crises come from inside the house. I'll never forget, I was a hospice chaplain, and I went back when I was doing hospice. You had to go and you would visit people in their home. And so you got a much more honest version of how the family works when you visit them in their home as opposed to seeing them in a hospital room. And I went to go visit this family, and all they did was argue. And all the mom did, and this were siblings. These were sister siblings. All they did was argue. And the mother, who was the patient, she didn't really say anything. And what I realized after spending about an hour with them and hearing their story, they were lost without their patriarch. Their father had passed away. Their husband had passed away about 2 years before. And he was the one who kept the peace. He was the one who told everybody to be quiet. He was the one who kept everybody in line. He was the one who knew this daughter, you got to take her aside and say, your mama didn't mean it, that kind. And then this one, you say, straighten up, and he knew who could handle what. And so the mom never did that. That wasn't her job in the family. Okay? And so without that connective leadership, they were lost. And how many of us have experienced it when mom died or dad died or a sibling died or just people? It exposed how fragile our family was, and we all went in different directions. It's not just what happens on the outside that will test our loyalty, but what happens when the trauma comes to our doorstep. Okay? We know how to circle the wagons, but when things come from the inside, it tests us in a different kind of way. And we will either run towards each other or run away from each other. But either way, internal crises will test our loyalty. And that's what's about to happen to these three women. The Bible says in verse 6 that then she, who is Naomi, started to return with her daughter-in-law from the country of Moab. For she had heard in the country of Moab that the Lord had considered his people and given them food. So she set out from the place where she had been living, she and her daughters-in-law, and they went on their way to go back to the land of Judah. But Naomi said to her two daughters-in-law, "Go back, each of you, to your mother's house. May the Lord deal kindly with you as you have dealt with the dead and with me. The Lord grant that you may find security, each of you, in the house of your husband." Then she kissed them, and they wept aloud. And they said to her in response, "No, we will return with you to your people." Naomi hears a rumor, okay? After all of the men have died, Naomi hears a rumor that the famine in Judah is over. And so she decides, it's a rumor, okay? There's no reporting. There's no alerts to her phone. She hears a rumor, okay, that the famine is over in Judah, and she decides to take a chance and go back home and see what's what. She's got nothing to lose, okay? She tells her daughters-in-law, there may be food back home. There's definitely food right here. There's definitely opportunity right here. She says to them, don't take the risk traveling with me. She says, there's no need for it. She says, you've done all you needed to do. You've gone as far as you needed to go. She tells her daughters-in-law, just stay here. She even prays for them. She prays over them. She lays hands on them. She prays that they would find a husband in safety and security, and they cry in a circle like a Hallmark movie. I guess it is. I've never seen a Hallmark movie. They cry in a circle. And then as they're letting each other go, the women say, we're staying with you. Now let me ask you a question. What is the smart decision? What's the prudent decision? Let me put it this way. Let me put it a different way. What is the less risky decision between going with their mother-in-law again, or for them, this is their first time, going into the unknown? Because for them, for Naomi, Judah is familiar. But to Orpah and to Ruth, Judah is unfamiliar territory, unfamiliar, hostile territory, right? What's smart? Okay, there is the knowledge. This is not a place they have to leave. Unlike leaving the famine at the beginning of the story, circumstances are different. Okay, Orpah and Ruth can stay, or arguably should stay. Again, what does it say? A bird in the hand is better than two in the bush. Something. Okay, they know for sure we got opportunities here. My people here. I can figure something out here. I know the lingo. I know how things are played. I know what I know here. Okay. Here's what I want to say. Logic will test your loyalty. Because oftentimes, loyalty won't make sense. In this instance, there's logic on one side, and there's loyalty on the other side. Okay? Some of us have looked and said, listen, there's no reason why we should do this. It doesn't make sense. It don't make dollars. It's not logical. Logic will test your loyalty. Okay? Nobody's going to understand. Okay? This is not the smart play. It's not even the necessary play. Right? One of the things she says is, you have, whatever you might have thought you owed me, you've done everything a mother-in-law could ask. Okay? You grieve when I needed to grieve. You took care of my boys, and you took care of me. You don't owe me anything, is what she essentially says. And they say, we're staying with you. Sometimes it's external crisis. Sometimes it's internal crisis. Sometimes it's just the crisis of our minds. Okay? Because logic will tell us this don't make any sense. This is not where you need to be. This is not what you need to do. Okay? And yet logic will test your loyalty. Okay? Okay? The conversation goes on, okay? Because Orpah and Ruth say we stand. And Ruth pushes back even more. Naomi pushes back even more. Okay? It's rarely that we get three women talking to each other in Scripture. So I got confused. It's too many, and then all their names. This is weird, right? So usually it's just a woman with an issue. It's a woman, right? Naomi said, turn back, my daughters. Why will you go with me? It doesn't make sense. Do I still have sons in my womb that they may become your husbands? Turn back, my daughters. Second time she says, go your way, for I am too old to have a husband. Okay, I don't have a covering under which you could find shade. Even if I thought there was hope for me, even if I had a husband tonight and bore sons 9 months from now, are you going to wait until they're grown and marry them? And if I only have one at a time, who get the first one? She didn't say that. I'm just saying. Okay? Would you then refrain from marrying? Are you going to stay here until, are you going to wait that long for them to come of age? She says, no, my daughters, it has been far more bitter for me than for you, because the hand of the Lord has turned against me. Then they wept aloud again. Orpah kissed her mother goodbye, but Ruth clung to her. Naomi takes the time to lay out in further detail all the reasons why they're making a bad move. And so Naomi continues to push them away. Orpah she receives her release, and Ruth commits to staying. I want to try to see if I can do something, and it might be a little bit complicated, might hurt even my head, but we're going to try it. Because I want to flip loyalty on its head for a second. I want to suggest that there is a loyalty in letting go. If loyalty is a kind of love, perhaps there is no more loving thing for Naomi to do than to let her daughters-in-law go. I think there's a kind of letting go that is loyalty. I know that is counterintuitive, right? Because we sort of say loyalty is about holding on. Loyalty is about holding on. Loyalty is about love. But if part of sort of loyalty is an allegiance to another, right? A love for another, a caring about another, to be consistently caring about someone might at some point lead you to have to let them go. Letting go is a kind of loyalty, I think, under the right circumstances. Okay? However, I will also say letting go will test your loyalty. Okay? Now I'm back in my groove. Letting go will test your loyalty. Right? To stay connected to someone who's tried to let you go. Okay? In Dream Girls, Effie said, "I'm not going anywhere. I don't care. Okay? Okay, you're going to love me. Okay, I'm staying. Okay, now let's just ignore the very next scene in the movie. It don't really go well for Effie for a while. But point is, even in the midst of what is trying to let her go, she says, I'm going to stay loyal. Right? And I will admit there have been seasons in my life when I've literally said, I don't want to be around nobody who don't want to be around me. Okay? You got one time to walk away from me. Okay? I've said all those kinds. And I am willing to even push against myself and wrestle with what there may be times in our lives when we are called to be loyal to people who are even willing to let us go. You can talk about me in the comments. That's toxic, and that's this and that's that, and this might be the time Pastor, I don't know what happened, but you got muted some way through the Bible study. I didn't hear anything that you said. I understand that. I understand, but I think that there is. Let me pause in here for a second and say I don't know if there's any kind of loyalty that doesn't at some point look toxic. Because it don't make sense, right? It strains rationality and credulity. Why would anybody do that? Okay. There are things that will test your loyalty. Okay. And letting go. Man, being let go. How about let's put it like that? Being let go will test your loyalty. Okay. If somebody's ever had a a conversation with you and said, I don't think we need to be together anymore, and you said, I think you need to go lay down, and when you get back up, we'll go out and get something to eat. Okay. Yeah. It's over, but it's just late. Yeah. You're just hungry. Okay. Okay. Because there are scenes in movies sometimes. One of my favorite movies is Backdraft. One of my favorite movies is Backdraft. I wanted to be a fireman for a while. One of my favorite movies is Backdraft. And there's a scene, and it happens twice in the movie, when there's a person who is hanging, and there's another person who's holding on to them, and they're holding on to each other. And there's a scene twice in the movie when the person who is hanging tries to let go. And he says, in both instances, they say, let me go. And they kind of open their hand to be let go and sacrifice themselves for the team. And the other guy who's holding on to him says, you go, we go. Okay. You might be letting go of me, but I'm not letting go of you. Okay. It's loyalty. And there are times when people will let go of you, and it will test your loyalty to them. So letting go will test your loyalty. What have we talked about? We talked about how external issues, external circumstances will test your loyalty, that internal circumstances will test your loyalty, that logic will test your loyalty, and that letting go will test your loyalty. And she says, look, this is verse 15. Look, your sister-in-law has gone back to her people and to her gods. Return after your sister-in-law. Ruth says to her, do not press me to leave you, to turn back from following you. Where you go, I will go. Where you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people, and your God my God. Where you die, I will die, and there will I be buried. May the Lord do thus to me, and more also, if even death parts me from you. Entreat me not to leave thee, or to return from following after thee. For whither thou goest, I go, and whither thou lodgest, I lodge. Thy people shall be my people, and thy God my God. Where you die, there will I be buried. The Lord do more to me also, if even death should part thee from me. That's the reason. That's a passage of scripture that many of us had to memorize in certain communities. I can put it like that. In certain communities, that's a particular passage of scripture that we have to learn, because it is from Ruth to Naomi a testament of her loyalty. It lays out. It is a definition of loyalty in sort of poetic form, or prayer form, or vow form. And if we were to take a moment to go back and sort of wrestle with what does loyalty mean? Loyalty looks like shared. I couldn't come up with a simple way to say it. So if you put it in the comments, shared life outcomes. Okay. Real loyalty means whatever gonna happen to you is gonna happen to me. One of the reasons that I think I might have become the leader of the seminary just because I like presidential movies and stuff like that. I like hearing Mr. President and stuff like that. So I can't remember. There's sort of one presidential movie where the president and the Secret Service are kind of talking to each other, and he says, "Listen, if something happens to you, it probably either already happened to me or it's going to happen to me right after it happens to you. Because I'm going to always be right next to you. So if you get hurt, I'm going to get hurt. If something good, if you got good weather, I got good weather. If it's raining on you, it's going to be raining on me too." Loyalty is about sharing life. That's what Ruth says to Naomi. I'm not just with you, I'm right next to you. Wherever you go, I'm going. Wherever you stay, I'm staying. If you got people, they my people. If you got a God, that's my God. If wherever you dying, I'm dying right there. And some of us was with Ruth till we got there. Okay. Where you die, I will die, and there will I be buried. May the Lord do thus to me and more as well, if even death parts me from you. She binds her life to Naomi's with a blessing, or how you said, I might think it's a potential curse. If I don't fulfill this vow, may God deal with me harshly, is essentially what she says. Okay, but again, I think we want the illusion of loyalty. We want to make it look like we're loyal, but insulate ourselves so that if it happens to you, it don't happen to me. Okay. Is it loyalty if our finances aren't tied together? Is it loyal? Listen, one thing I say is, if somebody in the house gets sick, we all get sick because we all together. Okay? If you get sick and don't nobody else get sick in your house, it make me wonder, are y'all close? Okay? Our lives are tied together. That's what loyalty looks like. Okay? And if something can happen to them without it happening to you, do y'all really have loyalty? If they're in pain and you like, ugh, sucks for you. Okay. If they are struggling financially and you don't somehow feel it, if they're grieving and you don't feel it, okay, do y'all really have a loyal relationship? Because loyalty is about shared life. Okay? And that is what Naomi is trying to keep Ruth from experiencing. She said, I know what loyalty is. That's why I'm telling you, don't be loyal to me. Because it might be some hard days ahead. Don't be loyal to me. I can't help you out in the future. Don't be loyal to me. I can't get a husband. Don't be loyal to me. My timetable and your timetable shouldn't be the same. Don't be loyal to me. Okay? And Ruth says, I'm in it. Let's go. Okay? The last one's kind of interesting. We're wrapping up. We're on the last three verses. We're on verses 19 through 22. It's really interesting how chapter 1 ends. It doesn't end on a good note. You want it to end on a good note. You want it to end and they all live happily ever after and things are going to be great. And they are immediate. Why? Because we all want to be rewarded for our loyalty. That's what we want. That's how we want chapter 1 to end. We want chapter 1 to end. Ruth stayed loyal to Naomi, and then good things happened to both of them. All of a sudden, both of them found men immediately, and everything was great. And they all lived happily ever after.
And even for good measure, if you could find out that something bad happened to Orpah, that would be the icing on the cake. Shame on her for leaving. Okay? Because it's not enough for you to win. You hope that other people might lose just a little bit. Okay? But that's not how the final 3 verses of chapter 1 end. Verse 19 reads, "So the 2 of them went on until they came to Bethlehem. And when they came to Bethlehem, the whole town was stirred because of them. And the woman said, 'Is this Naomi?' She said to them, 'Call me no longer Naomi, call me Mara, for the Almighty has dealt bitterly with me. I went away full, but the Lord has brought me back empty. Why call me Naomi, when the Lord has dealt harshly with me, and the Almighty has brought calamity upon me?' So Naomi returned together with Ruth the Moabite, her daughter-in-law, who came back with her from the country of Moab. They came to Bethlehem at the beginning of the barley harvest." Can you be loyal when it seems like your loyalty has not been rewarded? You know, how many times have we heard people say, I stayed in a relationship, and then he did the same thing over again. Or I stayed with the company. They asked me to withhold my raise and the money that was owed to me, and then they filed for bankruptcy. Right? I was loyal, and my loyalty was not rewarded. Right? Again, we get so used to reading the Bible and only certain stories. We get so used to being preached to in a certain way that we come up with a false formula for life. And the false formula is, if I do this, God will bless me. If I just behave this way, then good things will happen to me. If I just do A, B, and C, God will respond with X, Y, and Z. Okay? And that's not always how things play out. Or at least it's not always how things play out when we expect them to. And so the question that we have to wrestle with is, can we be loyal even when it seems like the rewards have not shown up? When there's no return on investment? Okay? Can you imagine? Can you imagine? Ruth and Naomi roll into town. Naomi is the family. Ruth is the stranger. And now you standing next to the bitter woman who telling people off. Don't call me that no more. I got a new name. God been mean to me. And here's Ruth just standing there saying, this is probably not how I thought walking into Bethlehem was going to be like. Okay? I thought for sure I made this big old speech, and once I got in town, it was going to be a man standing right there at the gate like, "Hey, babe, I've been waiting for you." Because that's how the story's supposed to go. I'm supposed to be faithful, and God's supposed to bless me. Isn't it interesting? We got a whole chapter, and you don't really see God. You don't hear God's voice. You hear God talked about, right? You hear God talked about. God causes the famine. God relieves the famine. And for Ruth, God is the cause of her pain. Excuse me, not Ruth, Naomi. For Naomi, God is the cause of her pain. Took the men away, forced her back home. She left with something, she came back with nothing. Okay, and she's upset. And here's Ruth, being loyal even while the rewards have not yet come. Okay. Now what Ruth doesn't know, which we have the benefit of knowing, is 3 more chapters. Right? That's the good news. The good news is, I don't know what you're going through, but there's more chapters. Okay, I don't know what you've experienced and why you felt like your loyalty was not rewarded in any number of different circumstances and relationships. The good news is there's more chapters. Okay. Nevertheless, it is unhelpful for me not to tell you it may not come as quickly as you think. Okay. There can be a lot of living between the end of chapter 1 and the beginning of chapter 2. Can you be loyal in between? Can you be consistent? Can you be counted on? Okay. Can you live in a way where your allegiances aren't always questioned? Can people know where they stand with you? Okay. Can they know that you are the same person in front of them as you are once they leave the room? Loyalty. Okay. Loyalty. And loyalty, because in our loyalty, we are reminded and resemble the loyalty God has to us. That God is loyal to us. God is faithful to us. God has an allegiance to us, especially in light of the fact that it don't make sense. There's no reason for God to be loyal to us. It is not logical. Okay? And yet, despite our behavior, despite our inconsistency, God is consistent with us. And so when we are loyal, we are, like in so many other ways, more like God, more like Christ. And so one of the lessons that we learn from Ruth and we take into this year is, can we be loyal? Can we be loyal? Can we be loyal? That's my prayer for you, not knowing what you're going through, not knowing what relationships you're wrestling with, or professional, personal, intimate, whatever, congregational, affiliations, denomination. What does loyalty look like? And to what extent is God calling you to be loyal in certain relationships? Again, listen, don't walk away from this room telling the world, I told you to be loyal to the wrong person. Okay? Or in abusive situations. Physically abusive, financially manipulative, but, okay, don't go out there talking about pastor said such and such. All I'm saying is, could it be? There are opportunities for us to demonstrate loyalty as a sign of our relationship with God and our understanding of how God has been loyal to us. That's all we got for this evening. I hope that it has been a blessing to you as we start this year out, as we wrestle with different things that I suspect we're going to have to deal with over the course of this 2026. I hope that you have been able to be prompted and prodded and thoughtful discernment on what God is trying to do in and through you as you start this new year. God bless you. Listen, have an amazing week. Hope to see you on Sunday at 10 o'clock a.m. as we share together in Sunday morning worship. We've got a special worship experience planned for you as it is Martin Luther King Jr. holiday weekend. And so we hope that as we gather together, we will remember the God, not just that we worship, but the God who calls us not just to worship, but as well to work, and so many other things that we're going to be thinking about this coming Sunday. So we'll see you this Sunday at January 18th at 10 o'clock a.m. Hope to see you on Sunday. God bless you and God keep you is our prayer. Have a great evening. Go in peace. Bye-bye.